Ooh, that is.
Don't come to work smelling like beer tomorrow.
Alright, I have a poem from my book, Incoherent Ramblings of a Madman. It is, I will arise and go now. I will arise and go to the shore. A field of crushed shells lay scattered on the land. A place of peace and tranquility dwell once more. A beautiful scene where the sun sets gracefully upon the sand. There I shall have some peace, for the land is calm and quiet. There is a slight drizzle falls from the sky and cools the air. The warm sand squishes beneath our feet as we walk. The moist breeze whimsically blows through our hair. I will arise and go, for this place be untouched. I shall hear the birds calling my name, and the shore shall beckon once more. I stand tall among the shore. We stand together, statues in the shadows of the sun. I hear my heart beat to the rhythm of the wave next to yours. And then I have part of a short story to read as well. Chapter 1. She sat in a musty, smoke-filled room with obnoxious drunks, talking noisily amongst themselves. Sitting with her back firmly pressed against a smooth wooden bar, slightly damp from the patrons' drinks that had once sat upon its surface. She placed a half-smoked cigarette to her dry, chapped lips as she leaned her head back and exhaled a cloud of thick gray smoke inside. It was almost 11 o'clock at night with zero sign of the man in the black coat. Having been waiting patiently for what was nearly 2 hours now, she began to drum her fingers anxiously on the hard wooden surface of the bar. Boredom had begun to settle in as she readjusted her thin, pale legs across one another. Turning around on the stool to face the bar, the hard metal of the Walther P38 pistol she had strapped to her waist under her worn-out white skirt pressed firmly against her flesh. She lifted the glass in front of her and gave it a light tap against the wood to order to get the bartender's attention. The bartender nodded in acknowledgement and carried himself over sluggishly to pour her another drink. The light brown liquid filled her glass, toppling over a few pieces of melted ice still remaining. She tossed a bill upon the surface of the bar in payment for her drink. "You're welcome," he said. Reluctantly letting out a smirk from the corner of her mouth, she swiveled around in place, reaffixing her gaze upon the entrance. She scanned the room for newcomers who may have entered while her attention was occupied. Nothing. The room had a cramped feeling to it, and while only having a handful of people around her, the feeling of suffocation still crept upon her. The smoke from their cigarettes engulfed the air around her, making it difficult to see the details of the people's faces. Tiny red dots paraded in the smoke-filled air like fireflies in a warm spring night. Monitoring the room, she heard the faint sound of bells above the entrance chime as a man walked in. While she was close enough to him to almost touch him, if she tried, she could not make out clearly what he looked like. However, beneath the dim light of the bar, she could make out the faint outline of a long black trench coat. The man stood out amongst the other patrons of the bar. As far as it went, too warm to wear a coat like that comfortably. He moved closer towards where she was seated, and she averted her gaze back to the bartender, shuffling behind the bar, making small talk with other patrons sitting around him. The man in the black coat approached the far end of the bar opposite where she was seated and motioned for the bartender. It seemed as though he had not noticed her presence, but then again she could be wrong. The bartender poured the man a drink and placed it down in front of him. In return, the man in the black coat reached into his coat and withdrew what appeared to be a few rolled-up bills. He placed the bills into the bartender's hand, and the bartender seamlessly deposited the payment into his pants pocket. As if nothing had occurred, the bartender gave no attention to the man in the black coat past that point. The bartender simply gave a nod and smile as the man in the black coat got up from his seat. It died. It died. It died. Ah! Bring it back.
Yell it.
You broke it.
Yell
Oh, did I break it? That was my fault.
You broke it again.
All right. I'm backing up. The bartender simply gave a nod and a smile, and the man in the black coat got up from his seat and walked off, leaving his drink untouched on the bar. She whirled around on her stool, and just quick enough to catch a glimpse of the man leaving through the unmarked exit in the back of the room. She was up and on her feet before the door closed behind him, following him to the alley outside. As the man approached the end of the alleyway, he paused. "You really don't want to shoot me, do you?" he said. "Why not? I've got nothing better to do anyway." "And what if they come after you?" he said. "Then I run," she said as she withdrew the gun strapped to her hip. "But you can't run forever," he said. She pulled back the sight of the gun and slowly drew it up to eye level. She firmly gripped the handle of it between both her hands, placing her finger firmly upon the trigger. "I don't intend to," she said, firing the pistol.